Welcome to the Current Report podcast. I'm Cece Woods, investigative reporter at thecurrentreport.com. In this episode, we are going to talk about the catastrophic failure of LA County Sheriff Robert Luna during the Palisades and Eaton fires in January of 2025. The fires affected tens of thousands of LA County residents, and ultimately his actions, or lack thereof, resulted in deaths and destruction that residents of LA County will likely never recover from. I speak with former Sheriff Alex Villanueva. We talk about the failed response to the Eaton Fire and the aftermath.
The fires, at least 29 people were killed. Damage is estimated at $250 billion, making this the costliest natural disaster in U.S. history.
Early January, the National Weather Service issued a very strange warning that they'd never issued before.
Agreed.
Particularly dangerous situation.
I was dumbfounded when I saw the purple and red and the flashing neon signs. Like, it was, I've never seen that before, ever. Not even during Woolsey.
5 days out, they issued this.
It's crazy.
Before Karen Bassett even packed her bags, they issued this.
Yeah, that's true.
So check this out. So you had, at the point they issued that, and I'm pretty sure the National Weather Service had figured this out, you had 2 years of record rain, followed by 8 months of record heat and no rain, which meant you had an awful lot of fuel built up everywhere. And you had areas, entire swaths of the interface between the wildlands and residential areas that had not been burned in decades. So all that fuel was there. Then to add to the mix, you had a historic level of hurricane force winds that's going to blow through the whole thing.
A Santa Ana wind event the National Weather Service called the worst in over a decade, turbocharging the fire.
The fire is being fueled by a combination of strong winds and surrounding topography, which is making it extremely challenging for our personnel that are assigned to this incident.
Prudent minds plan ahead for events to cope with it the best they can, deploy the resources they can to minimize a loss of property, and, heaven forbid, try to prevent loss of human life. And that didn't happen. The fire department, both city and county fire departments, say, well, we could have deployed everywhere. It wouldn't have made a difference because it was so big. That may be true.
They didn't even stage. They did not stage.
Right.
That's the bigger part. They should have been there, from the day before. They should have rolled those engines up there, and they should have staged in the area. And they did not. And they took 45 extra minutes to get to the Palisades fire.
So they didn't stage. They got burned for that, figuratively and literally. But the whole thing is, evacuations are the responsibility of the sheriff, not of the fire department. Fire department fights fires. They rescue people out of burning buildings, all that good stuff with all their protective gear and all that. That's their expertise. But when it comes to doing mass evacuations, that is the obligation of the sheriff, his sole responsibility.
Well, residents in western Altadena reportedly got the order to evacuate only hours after that fire exploded.
17 deaths are confirmed in that area, with others still missing.
Lo and behold, at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I wasn't, tied into any emergency alert, services. The sheriff was out front with a blowhorn announcing Mariposa Townhome Apartments, evacuate immediately. And so I started taking it seriously at that time, and I started getting dressed. And at 5:15, I looked out the window and saw embers flying through the air, and started grabbing my notebook, computer, and some other, things, and passports and that kind of stuff, and my cash that I had. And then at 5:30, I opened the front door, and there was just a wall of fire, just flame, just solid.
He simply did not show up at all. He was nowhere to be found. You had the department's operations center in the basement of the Hall of Justice. He didn't show his face there. You had the command post at the Rose Bowl. He didn't show his face there. You had the staging area, which is in a park close to the Eaton Canyon fire. He didn't show up there. You had another staging area and a small command post at Lost Hill Station. He didn't show his face there. He didn't show his face anywhere. And if he's MIA, we're thinking, okay, well, maybe the undersheriff, maybe he's attending his mom's funeral in the other side of the world. No, his undersheriff, nowhere to be found anywhere either. And then we go, okay, well, let's maybe the captain of Emergency Operation Bureau. That's it. That person is in charge, and that person is supposed to organize the preparation and pre-deployment and all that stuff in the response. That person showed up about a few days too late to the command post, and then apparently, from what I've been told, they decided to no, it was too much for her, and she decided not to show up to work. And this is the scary part. First newly promoted captain, first assignment, placed at the Emergency Operation Bureau with no experience in emergency management.
Shortly after the Eaton Fire ignited in Altadena, 911 dispatch lines were flooded with calls for help.
Roger, police dispatcher Aaron.
I need the fire department on Riviera Drive. There's houses on fire. There's no anybody here.
What is the address, ma'am?
1470. 1470. And I'm here now.
Panic and confusion.
Fire department, panic.
Hi, there's homes on fire on Ranch Top in Hastings Ranch. There's not one fire truck out here. Not one, not even police.
And the house is on fire?
Yes.
One common question, where were first responders?
We're starting to think we need to evacuate, and we need Pierre Madre to start getting on that.
I'm going to send an officer to check that area, okay?
No, we just walked outside. This looks like we should be like we're panicking to evacuate.
Okay.
These recordings, released after a public records request, reveal what critics call a breakdown in emergency response.
Just mind-boggling that why would you assign it? Because that is a position you always assign someone who knows what the hell they're doing, because it requires an awful lot of knowledge and experience in emergency management, knowing how everything is supposed to unfold before a disaster, during the disaster, and then after the disaster. All of that stuff, it requires a lot of knowledge. And to throw someone brand new into it, oh, by the way, here's the largest natural disaster in the history of Los Angeles. Hey, good luck with that. Well, the whole thing fell apart top to bottom. I've spoken to people on the ground, people that were at the DOC, people that were at the staging areas, people that were at the command posts. It was one clusterfuck from hell. You had no one that was in charge. You had lieutenants, captains, and commanders without a clue barking orders, barking contrary orders that made no sense, putting people where they didn't belong. You had people deployed in the field, and then you had people in the field barking orders and changing where they were deployed. So everyone lost track of pretty much everybody. Left, I think, one poor sap, I think the record was 34 hours nonstop.
Yes, I remember you telling me that. And then she was a female, right? And she had to go. Was it a female?
No, that's another one.
Oh, yeah. That had to, after crazy amount of hours, had to drive all the way back to the station, then drive all the way back to her house. It's like,
yes.
How do you do that? You're a zombie.
Yeah, pretty much. By the time you hit your head on the hay, the alarm is going off to start to do it all over again.
Yeah.
And that is just pure mismanagement. And then are we on 12-hour shifts? Are we not on 12-hour shifts? And people just basically holding 8-hour shifts over and over repeatedly, causing people to be working back-to-back doubles, for a god-awful amount of time. So there was no evacuation effort at all. What happened was, as the fires were burning, deputies working in the field doing the Lord's work realized, hey, you know what? We need to get people out of here. And they did an incredible job getting as many people out as they could. However, they didn't get 17 people out in the Altadena. And then on the city side, in the Palisades, they didn't know how to unscrew themselves and plan for a mass evacuation of the Palisades. So you had a bottleneck, and people basically burned alive where they were.
The death toll in the massive Los Angeles fires rising tonight to 24. I'm Jory Rand.
I'm Michelle Fisher. This is information from the LA County Medical Examiner's Office. 8 of those deaths have been tied to the Palisades fire, and the other 16 are from the Eaton Fire. Search and rescue crews were on the ground today with cadaver dogs. They have been searching both fire zones today and will continue their work through the week.
All of this,
yeah,
preventable. The fire damage, it was going to happen one way or another, and how much, it all depended on whether you pre-deployed your resources or you didn't, and how well those resources could work in hurricane winds. Not very well, obviously. And but the loss of human life is unforgivable, because that could have been prevented had they had their act together, and they did not have their act together. You can't abandon ship in the middle of the fight.
No, of course not. That's your job.
That literally is your job. So there's a lot of explaining that needs to happen, and we need to take the focus off of Karen Bass and focus it on Bunker Bob
and the supervisors.
Yes, Supervisor Horvath.
Those guys are all linked together. I mean, that they are the ones that are dismantling the department. So you know what? Let's talk a little bit about the 911 system that completely went down department wide.
They're blaming it on some kind of a power issue that resulted in the whole 911 system going down for about 20 minutes. And I'm not sure I'm buying the argument.
I'm not either.
However, I do know that between the CAD system and the 911 system, updated IT technology is not a priority for the Board of Supervisors or the sheriff. And it's something that they're loath to even do, because they want to spend their money on nice little, progressive, dreams.
Homeless. They want to spend it on the homeless. Nobody can account for the money, and we don't see really any change in the homeless.
They want to spend it on homeless. They want to spend it on youth development, on Justice, Care, and Opportunities Department.
I was just going to say that.
The famous JCOD and Department of Youth Development. All these fancy progressive dreams at the expense of defunding the public safety infrastructure of the county, what they are responsible for.
These political leaders in LA County are literally trying to destroy us and put us in harm's way.
What we're seeing right now is law enforcement, proactive police work is imploding.
Yeah.
Deputies, officers are putting their hands in their pocket and saying, hey, you want us to be firemen? We'll go out when the 911 call comes in. We'll just put our binders on the rest of the time. Which means the future killers of your loved one will never be stopped by the police, will never be arrested for possession of a handgun, for possession of burglary tools, all those things, and stolen vehicles. All those things are not going to happen because, the care first, jail last mantra of the Board of Supervisors is, they just need services. They'll be better human beings.
Okay, so let's go back to Eaton Fire. So Bunker Bob, Sheriff Luna, he was also MIA at the meeting in the Palisades with President Trump. And he could have taken an opportunity to address certain issues directly with the president, and he did not do that. And that to me is a huge concern, because he was down in Carlsbad at the Popo retreat, shaking hands and trying to get endorsements and money for his re-election campaign. And meanwhile, the city is still in complete and total disaster. Like, we were not even done with the fire, basically. It seems like he doesn't want to be anywhere near handling any type of natural disaster. And with all the earthquakes we're having, God only knows what's going to happen. Like, we could be facing the big one like soon, like we should be. We have been waiting for it for a very long time, but we're having a lot of little shakes, a lot. The faults are very active right now.
We have between a natural disaster, which is going to be something like an earthquake, very likely.
Yeah.
Earthquake to tsunami.
Yeah.
Other combination possible.
Yeah.
And then man-made ones like a large-scale riot in the jails.
Ooh.
Which is, is always a threat, particularly considering how poorly managed the jail system is right now under Luna. And in a large-scale event, he's just not there. the poor deputies on the ground have to figure it out on their own because there is no direction, there's no leadership from above. And that is really, really bad because that's the whole purpose of having authority and concentrated in the hands like the sheriff's hands, because they have the ability, when they know what they're doing, to actually, move mountains and make things happen and keep people safe. But it's just not happening right now.
So as the sheriff, when you were sheriff, you were able to work directly with the governor, correct?
Yeah,
or any major politician or elected official. Could you call up Pam Bondi if you were sheriff right now?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So you can basically call up anybody as the head of the largest sheriff's department in the country, not to mention the largest county in the United States, correct?
Yeah, by population, yes.
Okay. So you could basically pick up and call any of these elected officials and say, I need your help.
Mm-hmm. That definitely could happen. And during the pandemic, we reached out to Newsom to get EMTs licensed to administer vaccines. And even though we have our political disagreements, I think he's absolutely a disaster of a governor. Mm-hmm. He did the right thing and he signed that. So that gave us more than 200 EMTs who could administer vaccines, for example. And same thing during the Summer of Love. Mm-hmm. We interacted with Cal OES, Office of Emergency Services for the state. We got the National Guard deployed immediately within 4 hours, not 4 days, 4 hours. Things that never happened during the fire. I mean, it took them, 4 days to figure out that you don't have enough people? Really?
Well, that's the most important thing that people need to understand is what you are capable of doing, what your powers are as sheriff, because he's basically demonstrating that he has no powers. That's the way it looks. It looks like he has no say-so in anything and he can't do anything or I mean, I just don't understand. Do you know why he waited 4 days to get the National Guard down here?
Well, he voluntarily emasculated himself and placed his whatever in the purses of the Board of Supervisors. They control everything he does. And if you listen to his language, he talks about, collaboration, partner this, partner that, we're going to collaborate, this and that. That's a given. You form partnerships and you collaborate, but that's no substitute for leadership.
No, you got to take the bull by the horns and you got to get it done.
Imagine if the president of the United States says, well, we're collaborating with our partners internationally. Oh yeah, how's that going to work out? Well, who's in charge? Or wait a minute, is Congress in charge? Is the Supreme Court in charge? Or is the Secretary of Health and Human Services in charge? I mean, who's running the show? Someone has to be in charge that you can identify, and at least everything goes through that one individual. So this whole collaboration, partnership thing is bullshit woke language designed to basically virtue signal to the progressive crowd that put him in office. However, that doesn't keep your family safe. It doesn't evacuate your 92-year-old grandma who burned to death in the Altadena fire.